So, welcome back to the podcast. As a business owner, we all know that risks are inevitable, right? And from an economic downturns to who knows, an unexpected pandemic that shuts down the entire world, there's things that just keep us up at night that just are not often covered by traditional insurance. But what if there was a way that you could proactively manage those risks while also gaining significant tax advantages? My guest today is Van Carlson, and he is the founder and CEO of SRA 831B Admin. He's an expert in alternative risk management and tax advantage strategies, and he's here to help us understand how 831B plans can provide financial security, tax benefits, and a smarter way to protect your business. Welcome to your Profitable Law Firm podcast. I'm Kelley Brubaker, your dedicated host, passionate about empowering law firm owners. Let's dive into the hidden strategies that lead to overflowing profits, scaled growth, and thriving lives. This is where overwhelm transforms into confidence, enabling you to create and enjoy your dream firm and your dream life. So welcome, Van.
Kelley, thank you. Great intro. I appreciate that.
Awesome. I had a little help. I typed something up and I was like, ChatGPT, I'm not sure this is right.
Boy,
I had it. It was like
I know
3 paragraphs and it condensed it.
I love the tone, right? You can help with the tone. Like, hey, make this a little friendlier. It's like, yeah, it's all good. It's all good.
It absolutely.
We're in the golden age of AI is what I like to say. We'll see how long do that.
Exactly. Well, and I just did a podcast. Actually, I think it drops tomorrow about AI. The things that you can do are just so amazing. I love it. I mean, just the questions you ask. And I definitely, since I work with law firms a lot of lawyers, they either love it or hate it. And the ones who love it, I'm like, oh, good for you. Like, there's good going on here. The ones that hate it are like, there's no way I could ever use AI. Like, I can't use it to draft a legal document, a brief, a motion. And I'm like, I agree with you, but there's that's this little piece of AI. There's so much out there it can help you with.
Right. We're a big believer here at SRA. We're quick to adopt. And I think I've been dealing with enough AI firms that AI will be one of the biggest impacts in our lives.
Yeah. Agreed.
With the internet. I mean, it's at that level. So anyway.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Oh yeah. I still remember like the first computer I had at home and the dial up, and I was in college. I lived at home that year, and I would have to tell my parents, you need to get off the phone. I need to dial into AOL and check a message.
I know, right? How far we've come.
It's amazing. My kids have no idea.
Oh no, not at all.
No. So we're here to talk about 831B plans. So can you talk a little bit about, what this is and how it can benefit a business owner?
Yeah, you bet. So an 831B is just part of the tax code, first and foremost. It came into existence in 1986, Tax Reform Act, which is really creating an incentive for business owners that are going to have to self-insure risk. One of the ways that we talk about this, Kelley, is when you have an unfunded liability on your books, meaning that you haven't been able to transfer it to traditional insurance companies, whether they insure the risk or it's just cost prohibitive or there's exclusions and it's not really going to cover the way you need it to cover, you're going to retain those on your books. And then it just comes down to risk financing. How do you want to risk finance that? Do you want to use pre-tax dollars or after-tax dollars? And if you want to use after-tax dollars, that's just operating capital of the company, right? Now you're paying unexpected expenses, going to get your budgets, all of those things that are going on. And it's a really inefficient way to manage the risk. If you want to use pre-tax dollars, then you utilize an 831B. And all an 831B is it's going to look and feel like an insurance company. We as an administrator of these plans, which we're the largest administrator of plans in the United States, is really has to look and feel like an insurance company. We don't complicate the business owners' lives. What we do is we admin those. So think of us no different than if I was going to do a 401k, I'd want a 401k administrator, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't want to be subject to the ERISAs and all the rules and the liabilities. Yeah. I hire a third-party administrator. So we're that third-party administrator for business owners that want to that recognize their self-insuring risk and want to utilize the 831B tax code, utilizing tax deferred dollars to manage the risk. Because the whole point is, I'm expensing the premium at my operating company level, no different than I'm expensing general liability or professional liability insurance or
Oh yeah.
all that good stuff. And you're going to expense this too, but now I'm putting it into an 831B plan. The C Corp looks and feels like an insurance company, electing it on an 831B, and the premium I'm putting into it it gets recognized as income, but not taxable income. And now you're able to build up a surplus on a tax, really similar to 401k, right? You're building up those,
Okay.
you know, the vehicle does get taxed though. What it does get taxed on is realized investment gain. So if I put
Okay.
I put my premium into money market account at 4%, I'll pay taxes on that realized 4% gain. So that's where it gets taxed. But again, we don't, we do a full underwriting, full assessment of the business owners, the different industries we're worked in. I know you're focused on law firms, and we can certainly dive into that, what we deal with law firms around the country with, and specifically when it comes to professional liability insurance, honestly.
Oh yeah, no, that's amazing. Yeah, I'd love to hear examples because, like to be able to translate it. I love the analogy of the 401k because at least for me, that's very relatable. Even though I'm self-employed now, I had worked in, at a, I've had employers in the past, so I get that whole analogy, and so I really like that, how that ties in, logically in my mind at least. But so if I'm a law firm owner and I'm listening to this podcast and I'm like, oh, I heard tax savings, like music to my ears. What would be the things like how, what would be, so definitely, malpractice insurance, that would be one. Is there something else
Yeah.
a law firm could use for this for?
Yeah, so we're risk managers first and foremost. That's what I think just a part in our space is that we're risk managers. Our firm is made up of risk managers. We hire the CPAs, we hire the attorneys and all that stuff. But when it comes to utilizing 831B, it's first and foremost a risk management tool. So we absolutely dive in with the law firm really, and we listen to the client. The client's always going to be telling us what's keeping them up at night. What are they not covered? What do they feel uneasy about? We get into a lot of different conversations with law firms. It depends on the size of the law firm, but
Okay.
we see a lot of employer liability practices issues within law firms sometimes. And that's a huge disruption to law firms. What we've been witness to is, okay, I might have an employer liability practice. So that's the best, that's, harassment,
Yeah.
work environment, all that fun world. And let's be honest, law firms can be high stress situations. Things get said and done that may offend other people, right? I mean, it's just
Right.
world that's in, right?
I agree.
But the disruption side of it can be significant. So meaning business interruption. If you got one of your top performers or you are the performer of your law firm and now you're being distracted on some of these other things that go on that owning the business requires you to deal with, it takes away from your billables, it takes away from your
Absolutely.
cases through, and it's a serious business interruption. So we write a broad form business interruption policy for law firms, and then we dive into their malpractice policy. What we find a lot of times is, and I call them nickels and dimes, meaning, you just have a disgruntled client, and you may just want it to go away. But to turn that into your
Yeah.
insurance carrier becomes problematic. And sometimes it's just better to, a lot of times when you look at professional liability insurance, a lot of times it's just a math problem, honestly.
Yeah.
Do we want to bear the cost of the legalities part of this, or can we just write a check and make it go away?
Right.
That can be good and bad, honestly. The bad
Absolutely.
part
No, I agree with that. Yeah.
the bad part is are you creating issues, cultural issues within your firm, that you're settling some of these things? And then the other thing is, what if, you're right and you shouldn't have to, and you want to fight the fight, but that decision is kind of taken out of your hands when you transfer that risk to a malpractice carrier. These are all things that go into this. And then also too, a lot of times in order to offset the cost of the malpractice insurance, you're taking on a bigger first dollar loss, which means you may, and I've seen as high as $250,000 before my practice kicks in. I got to be out that much money before that kicks in. Sometimes they want control of that so they can make that decision. Hey, I'm just going to write a $10,000 check, and it really comes down to customer satisfaction more than you did something wrong. unfortunately. I mean, it's just
Okay.
the world we're in. Especially what kind of law practice you're doing, right?
Yeah.
Where some people said, well, I would have got that settlement from the insurance company without you. And now they want all those things that go on in that
I know.
world, which I'm sure
Yeah.
you're privy to, that
Yeah.
says, hey, and to me, it's, if you're having a good year, things are good. You've got some good settlement cases coming through, and now you've got just to take a little bit off the top, park it off the side, still expense it, but now you
Yeah.
have these dollars building up inside this plan. It's not only, and I say it all the time, it's not just good risk management, it's just good business. And
Yeah.
knowing that you have those dollars set aside, and I call it a war chest or a rainy day fund, right? I mean,
Yep. I love that.
what's going on in your business? Are you being attacked? Or now you have an unexpected expense happening to your business. Where's those dollars going to come from? Boy,
Yeah.
boy, it would have been nice if I had done this 2 years ago, right? Kind of thing. And then I think the other big key is,
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
yeah, I think COVID's a good example. I think you brought it up earlier. The
Yeah.
fact is, we say that a lot. If you rely on PPP or ERC or any of those things to keep your business afloat, what are you doing differently today? Because honestly, I hope that you
Exactly.
don't experience that ever again, right? But
Right.
we didn't see that one coming either, right? So,
No.
what are you doing differently about that? And honestly, too, and I happy to talk to you about what's going on at the federal level, congressional and the executive branch right now, utilizing this code. That this should have been the PPP plan all along, right? And I love being on your platform, and we're educators first and foremost. We want to bring awareness to this code. That's why, man, I'm really appreciate being on your podcast. Just
Yeah.
just to get to know the code, just to understand it's there at the right
Right.
time. It's a great tool. It may not be at the right time for you, depending on where you're at in your practice. If you're a
Right.
startup or, I mean, obviously we typically deal with more mature type firms just because
Right.
they, they kind of swam out of the the tide, and now
Yeah.
they're in a good spot where they have a consistent revenue, their business is there, and they got brand reputation they got to worry about. That's one thing that we work with a lot of firms too is brand protection.
Oh, that's a good point.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's a really good point. Yeah. I didn't even think
It's
about that. Yeah.
it's unfortunate about the reviews. Anybody can get
Yeah.
negative review, but sometimes, and sometimes you want to quash the review. It's so bad. I mean, I've been in situations. I had a disgruntled employee of a restaurant actually make 18 fake emails and went after the Yelp review, and they dropped so significantly, so quickly on stars.
Yeah.
It dramatic. They didn't even know what was going on until they realized there was less people coming through their doors. And then,
Right.
it's Yelp's it, right? Yelp. I mean, you're going to Google Yelp before,
Yeah.
you know.
Absolutely. It's crazy how things are. I know. I feel like, yeah, depending on what your practice area is as a law firm, personal injury seems to really rely on Google reviews.
Oh, yeah.
And there was something I think last week that there was a trend on LinkedIn where all the PI attorneys in my network were like, "Oh my gosh, I logged in, where all my good reviews are all gone. Oh, what's going on?" And I think I got fixed. There was some glitch in the Google, but yeah, reviews are a big deal. So yeah, I didn't even consider, reputation risk. So, but
Oh,
you
yeah.
mentioned about, maturity and like certain, startup, not, this isn't like really like the best time if you're a startup, but what, is it more that do I start thinking about this based on how many years I've been in practice, or is it based on like revenue level? Like what would be a guiding factor of when do I need to reach out to you to start this
No,
conversation?
That's a great question. I would tell you it's more revenue driven, right?
Okay.
You know, and here's the
Yeah.
thing about taxes. I mean, we all want to pay our fair share of taxes, right?
Right.
But at the same time, though, I don't want to be dependent on the government to bail me out the next time a pandemic hits. And that's really where the 831B has been. And when you look back in the history of 831B, and two, what's going on in the insurance market in general. I mean, we haven't even talked about that. I mean, and it doesn't matter what industry you're in, you're paying a high premium and you're getting less coverage.
Yeah.
So talking about AI, one of the things that we use is called Legal On. I mean, I think and we run insurance contracts there, specifically looking for exclusions, looking for limits of coverages, and then figure
Oh,
we
yeah.
and then we call it a halo coverage where we bring it over the top of your existing policy. So if you're on the
Okay.
hook for the first dollar loss, say of your property or, slip and fall. We're starting to see liability deductibles, which, a handful of years ago, that wouldn't even have happened.
Right.
But so anything that the Halo is designed to come over the top of your existing policy. So if you have a first dollar loss, meaning you have a deductible or you just got to pay a co-insurance or something like that before it triggers coverage, that the 831B will help fund that and any expenses as well. So, and then too, if you have a limited risk policy where, some of these folks might have a business operating policy, it's an office policy, BOP. Well, they might help give you $50,000 in EPLI coverage, for example, but that's a drop in the bucket, as we know. If it goes south, it's a bad day, right? So
I know
those sublimits are so low that they're not going to do a lot for you. So it's going to fall to you as the insured to bear that cost. And how do you want to utilize it? Again, use a tax deferred or pre-tax dollars.
No, absolutely. Yeah, because I mean, I can still remember 5 years ago, now. I mean, it was, end of February, beginning of March. And, the grumblings of there's something happening. And I can remember I was at a PTA meeting and the superintendent walks in and says, we got to cut this short because I'm hearing that we may not be allowed to come to school next week. And I looked at him, he was sitting right next to me and I'm like, did you just say what I thought you said? And he goes, yeah, we might not be here next week. And I'm like, and I just could not fathom the world literally shutting down and being told I can't leave my house. I can't, and I still look back thinking, oh my gosh, but all of a sudden, it's like everybody has their pants down, like, oh my gosh, what just happened? I don't know. I didn't save for this. I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know how to do my business, and the best firms that were agile, right away, all the businesses that could pivot into, remote work, remote service.
Doing work. Yeah,
absolutely. I mean, and I still feel bad for, the gas station, people who worked at gas stations and grocery stores, frontline. Yeah, first responders, all, healthcare. I feel horrible about how all that rolled out, but now, like you said, we're 5 years away from that. And what did we learn? A lot of people, self-included, rolled right back into old habits. And, so here's something, let's revive this, like Phoenix rising out of the ashes, right? We actually had this thing this whole time. We had a solution that we could have been using. So that's why I think it's amazing to be able to spread the word and educate. I love that you said educate, because I see myself as an educator more than anything, is trying to, help people understand there is a better way. So you can create your firm however you want it, that works best for you. There's no right or wrong way. There's always more than one way to do something. And I think this is a wonderful solution, and with some guidance and planning. And I like your approach to, sit and talk to, to your client and, what's really keeping you up at night. And, okay, well, I understand you. Here's the things, here's what we can do. We can start putting money aside. And it just seems like this win-win all around. So let's say we contact you, we get this set up. We get, 15 years down the road from now. And now I'm looking at retiring because I'm early 50s. So I pray to God I retire in 15 years. But life would be better, but 15. So let's just say we're 15 years from now. And, like, knock on wood, and I have a real wood desk. So knock on wood, made it minimal claims, minimal things have happened all this time. So this money is now sitting in this company. It's built up. We paid the income tax on the earnings. I got that part of it. But now what happens to that money? So I decide I want to close my firm. And I guess let me ask this: is there a difference between whether I sell my firm? I guess I'm assuming that the 831B would follow or not. I don't know. And then
it's a standalone company.
And then how does it close? Okay. So it's not tied. So is it not tied specifically to the firm?
Yeah, it's underwriting the risk of the firm, but it's not tied to the risk. You can have the firm own certainly own the 831B plan if you want.
Okay.
You got to remember it's a C corp, so it's going to be a shareholder.
That's exactly. Yeah, I didn't think about that part. Yeah.
It will mimic the ownership of the operating company we're insuring.
Okay.
The operating company itself can own the 831B plan. It really depends.
Okay.
What we're trying to get, and we kind of give recommendations on that, right? As your admin.
Okay.
We're going to make suggestions on how it should be owned. We don't get cute with that because that's another thing where the IRS has gotten upset in the past on this code is
completely agreed.
Is
Yeah. If I had a little heart button, the little hearts would be popping up right now. Yeah. I there's one thing about being creative. I'd rather just not piss off the IRS.
My experience with the IRS, get me once, don't get me twice. Utilize money. And that's, and I get it. I get it from their perspective. But anyway.
I did.
And so to your question though is, because it's a C Corp, you redeem the stock and you pay long-term capital gains and we shut it down and do a final tax return.
Oh, nice. Yeah,
Not
that's
complicated.
awesome.
It's like selling a piece, really you're retaining the stock. And so that just, you're getting paid, it's no different than anything else. Like if you own stock and it merged into a company, you either can redeem the stock or you convert the stock, right? I mean, so there's a lot.
Absolutely. Yeah.
But so it's not, one thing, Kelley, we're always trying not to make it too complicated because when business owners hear that, well, what do you mean it's an insurance company? Well, it has to look like an insurance company, but it's not insuring people it's not insuring other things. Now, there are some old risk that go into this. And that's really where it gets into the details, of the deal. And we don't need to hit on that too hard, but I do want to make sure clients know there is a distribution of risk here, meaning that you have a potential to pay unaffiliated claims that are not your own on a portion of those dollars. But I think it's always the key component that gets missed sometimes, but I always want to make sure, educate, due diligence. And at the end of the day, it's not a silver bullet, but it's certainly a great tool for business owners at the right time.
Right.
In your career as a business owner or just unexpected expenses is always a scary thing for any business at any level you're at. But I think awareness, to your point about education, one of our goals as a company is to bring this synonymous with a business practice, no different than having a 401k. And it's not because of all the tax savings. You're tax deferring, right?
Exactly. Absolutely.
We don't know what gains and qualified dividends going to do down the road, but the whole point there is, it's mostly for insurance companies are not going to expand their risk for appetite for when it comes to risk. If anything, they're contracting. The last time this happened was really in the 80s when this code came into existence, which we're coming up on 40 years next year, and a lot of people don't know about it. And it's unfortunate at the same time, but I do think we are definitely on our way to make this a normal business practice. And it's mostly a necessity of risk management. That has tax incentives to it. That's what the code is.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yep. No, I like that. So when you talk, so you go out and you're talking to somebody, whether it's a podcast or a webinar or a conference or whatever it is, but you're out and you're talking to different people and they're like, this is the first time that they're hearing about it, or they've already talked to somebody who persuaded them not to pursue it. What are I guess I like to say the random, the myths, the things that people like in my world. I have a lot of people today. I had somebody ask me about cost segregation studies for tax savings, and it was a whole discussion about why their CPA was like, don't do it. It's illegal. And I'm like, it's not illegal. What are you talking about? So what are there either questions you get or like people that rebuff you and they're just like, that doesn't even work, that you're like, no, can we just kind of squash that a little bit and set the record straight? Is there something that like commonly objections and myths that you hear that you want to set the record straight on?
Yeah, I think thank you for that question. The hurdle factor CPAs, honestly. And it's knowledge base.
Oh, sorry. I apologize.
I didn't mean to keep you in the stomach, but
I just question.
That's why it's no surprise to you. I mean, less CPAs, they got a hard job. I mean, you guys do. I mean, the CPAs is, I've got a daughter that worked for Deloitte for a couple of years and now she's working. I chuckling, and it's true though. I don't think I'd have grandkids if she kept working for Deloitte. So she can convert.
Exactly.
When you mentioned, I know you came from KPMG previous. The environment you're in, but
I'm totally
it really is a knowledge base, and you can't. I think CPAs have by business owners have a huge amount of trust in their CPAs. They just do, just naturally do. So we want to work with CPAs are our biggest referral source when it comes to clients, honestly.
Okay.
But
But that's redeeming quality, right?
yeah, absolutely. The problem is there's
The
no,
other on the opposite sides, there's the ones who love you and the ones that hate you.
and I will tell you this, and I think one of the things that's been encouraging is the tax planning, not just showing up telling what you, but really like right after April 15th, you're sitting down with your CPA, you're going through the tax strategies, and put it all on the table and let the business owner know. And I think, do your due diligence like anything else. There's bad actors in every space. I think the fact that we come from risk management, I think is a huge advantage to us. The fact that we've gone through a 6,700 promoter audit from the IRS and they've closed it down with no changes
Good.
a year ago, over in June of last year. All of those things that's where it needs to play out. The other thing is, here's what, if we make this, when we're making this a normal business practice, and I think it comes down to the CPA community to work, and also the law firms, the attorneys. These are just another tool in the toolbox for the right client, and even to your law firm practitioners. You're working with business owners too that maybe aren't aware of this. Now they're on the hook for their own legal bills. I will tell you, one of the biggest things we see out there is the dispute resolution policies that we offer to our clients that cover you when action's brought against you. Your general liability policy is not covering you, but you're out now being legal expenses. That's a huge cost to a business today that is really unfunded as well. But anyway, I went off track there a little bit, but
No, that's okay. It's all good. Because I wasn't even thinking, I mean, I was kind of thinking ripple effect, but I wasn't even going far enough. But you're right that I mean, I've got plenty of law firms that I work with that do, they're supporting, corporate, business, other small businesses. And I didn't even think about that ripple effect, back to lay it out to their clients. So that's really
awareness
it's a good thing.
And I think all you can do, and let the business owners decide. I think most business owners in law, if you own a law firm by intention or by accident, whatever goes on out there, you're a risk taker too, right? I mean, we're all risk takers. If we have to meet a payroll and pay the rent and buy the bill, all the things that burden of ownership comes with, you are taking risk, and you are a risk taker, whether you like it or not. You're
Right.
taking risk on it. And I think to help mitigate that risk wherever you can, that you owe it to yourself to look into. And that's really where I get the frustration with CPAs, because they are quick to say no versus really doing their, and I get it. I get the workload they're under and everything else. But I do think some things are
one thing I have to research. Yeah, I get it.
your point earlier, right, about the segregation. It's just know it or don't know it. And if you don't know it, it's easier to say no, and you don't ever want to in front of your client, right? So it's a delicate dance we got to do with that. And I think we do a pretty good job with that for the most part. And business owners are, the threshold, I call it the threshold of pain. They're getting that. I mean, they're looking at their insurance coverages today, going, I'm getting less coverage, but I'm paying more premium. What can I change? What's the difference it is? And again, I think for the right, and what I hear CPAs say a lot of times that we work with is like, hey, quote unquote, this could be aggressive tax planning, but I think you owe it to yourself to look into these types of things.
I agree. Look at it.
Well, they're looking at their taxes and going, man, you got a big expense here. They know it's not covered by insurance, but had they had one of these things, it would have softened the blow at least. You know what I mean? So those are the types of tools I think we all should be bringing to our business owners, consulting and doing all these things. And kudos to you to have us on there to talk to your listeners and bring awareness.
Absolutely.
That's all it is. It's like, do your own research. The good thing about technology and AI, go do your own technology, do your own research, do your own. But don't be so quick to say no on something that I think maybe is new to you. And at the same time, it can bring a lot of value to yourself as a business owner and business owners you work with, honestly.
Absolutely. No, I definitely, it's all good things. I just think it's definitely something to consider. And like you said, tool, it's just a tool, and it could be one tool of many in your tool belt. So I love that. I talk a lot to my clients about that I am one tool in their tool belt. And, so this is just one more thing because you can't use a screwdriver to hammer a nail, right? So you've got to have the right tool at the right time. Do what?
You shouldn't.
Oh, you shouldn't. That is true, actually. That was probably bad. Yeah, I probably should have picked a better tool. You can't use a saw.
I think I've tried that before. I don't know. It didn't work out too good. I still tried it. It's
Oh,
a
trust me. Yeah. The other day I had to hang a picture that didn't have, it was I do crafty things, and I made a picture frame as a gift for somebody, and the frame didn't have the little hooks on the back. And so I had to put little eye hooks on the top so that you could hang it. And because it was gonna be all cutesy, I had this whole little idea in mind. Could not get the screw into the top of the picture frame. And I'm sitting here like, what tool? And I go out to my garage and I'm looking in my toolbox and I've got all these things, but nothing. The one thing I knew I needed was I needed a drill bit, but I needed a really, really, really tiny drill bit. And I only had a big drill bit. And I'm like, well, that won't work. Can I use, and I'm going through every single thing. I'm like, oh, I have this Phillip head screwdriver. Can I at least start a little hole? Nope, that didn't work. So
you
done.
maybe punch it in, do a hole punch.
Oh, I tried. Listen, I tried. You need the right tools. Like, what it comes down to, the lesson is you need the right tools at the right time. So I think this is a good thing. So one last question before I let you go. So this has been around, like you said, we're coming up on 40 years. Is there, trust me, as a CPA, I think every time there's a new president, we get the whole panic about tax code's going to be blown up and blah. We're no longer going to have income tax and all, whatever. Right? So today is what, February 25th of 25, just so that we can date it a little bit. So is there anything that we know, I'm not asking you to go on a limb of what you suspect, but just, is there anything that we know may be changing, good or bad, with this specifically?
Yeah, the 831B code, I think we've gotten a lot of traction with congressional leaders of late, mostly due to the COVID. And then, because it's been around for 40 years, there's an education process there too. I mean, a lot of these congressional folks, even though some were around in 86, whether they remember they were.
Sadly they were.
I had to say that, right? But for the most part,
I'm right on board with you.
For the most part, they don't know anything about the code. And so we've spent the last 4 years with our lobbyist efforts, mini-cap out of DC. And I would say the industry leaders in our industry, as managers, we brought the education of the congressional leaders, and they, the same reasons why they passed in 1986 is the same reasons why they want to do it today is, and so I will tell you, I think we're going to use some cleanup, the IRS obviously, and to their, I'm not going to say they weren't abused. They were abused. These codes were abused, and unfortunately they were used for estate tax purposes was why the abuse really came in. Because the C Corp, they made irrevocable trust or kids own it. And now there's an ownership test you have to follow. That came into the PATH Act in 2015, but they also increased how much you could contribute to these things on an annual basis significantly. So it also brought a lot more other people to the table. So I would just tell you that I think we're going to get some clarity on that. It feels really good from that standpoint. I think the IRS is going to have to capitulate to some level because, these things are becoming extremely popular more and more. And if, and it's not that I want more regulations. I think I want more clarity to existing regulations, honestly. But I think a lot of things I would say the planets are lining on some of these issues that I think, if you may be hearing about this for the first time, but it won't be the last time you hear about it, because I do think it's going to become more commonplace, and that it's a tool that has great tax incentives, but the risk management side is what's going to drive the bus for business owners. Because honestly, there's no worse feeling when I used to sell traditional insurance that, hey, you're not going to be covered and here's why, or hey, if you turn this in, here's the fallout. And as a broker or an agent to your client, those were never good positions to be in. And I think those conversations are continuing. And if anything, they've gotten worse over the last several years because of what's gone on in the insurance industry. So again, it's a great tool at the right time. And honestly, you owe it to yourself, you owe it to your business, the risk you take to get where you're at today as a business owner, to look at all these tools, all these tax advantage tools that you bring to the table, Kelley. All of them have their place. It's just at the right time, right place and everything, but it's more of awareness and education.
Yeah, no, I agree. So Van, we've had just great conversation. I love this. I'm actually kind of sad to let it end, but we don't need to drag on and on. So if somebody wants to get in touch with you, they're listening and they're like, oh my gosh, don't even care what my CPA says. I want to reach out to Van. What's the best way for somebody to reach you? Is it like LinkedIn, your website?
LinkedIn's great. LinkedIn's great.
Okay.
831b.com. We own that website domain, 831b.com. I think that's another place to really start some of your due diligence. You'll see some case law. You'll see some great case studies. You can always request certain case studies from us. We got legal pain. We've got all of the, knowing that who your listeners are mostly are attorneys, that, they got a lot of boxes to check, and I think we've
absolutely
boxes for them. But that's a great place to start. And of course, you can always Van at 831b.com. And we work with a lot of advisors all over the country too. So geographically, we've got probably 150 agents around the country that know our products well, and we would match those folks up. And so hopefully somebody in your backyard can come and sit down and talk to you about it and educate you on it, and create a resource of anything about types of products. So anyway, but no, that's the best.
I love that.
So
awesome. Well, I will be sure that when this publishes, that I will put in the show notes the links, that way so you don't have to rewind the podcast and grab those again. Say, what was that? I don't know. But I will make sure that those are in the show notes. But Ben, it's been a wonderful conversation. I've really enjoyed, talking to you, and, definitely good luck with your mission. I will do what I can to help, propel the conversation. Hopefully I'll create another couple of ripples for you, to be able to spread the word. So, but thank you very much. I really appreciate your time today.
Hey, thank you, Kelley. Appreciate yours.